Hello everybody, Dave Neal here. This is part 2 of a video with some former Bachelor contestants discussing Chris Harrison, cancel culture, Rachel Lindsay, and everything that's going on with The Bachelor. This is a roundtable brought to you by PragerU, which is not a university. It's a conservative website founded by a talk show host named Prager. And just to show you guys, before we get into part 2, if you didn't catch part 1, I like to look at media bias charts. This is the yellow dot right here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. This is the yellow dot right here. This is an extreme right bias. We like to have something, lean a little left center, lean a little right center, try to be as least biased as you can be. That's what we look for in our media. But this is considered extreme right propaganda, poor sourcing, failed fact checks, false claims. Now, within the conversation that we're talking about, there's no false. You don't have to worry about poor sources, but what we do have here is a problem with diversity in this conversation. You can't talk about race and have 2 white guys and a white woman. You just can't. In response to part 1, I'm already getting comments written in. Lexi said, the irony of these white men from The Bachelor defending Chris Harrison, like, of course you were comfortable and enjoyed his presence. But that's not what we're talking about. Writing this off as cancel culture just shows a complete lack of critical thinking. So PragerU kind of proves their point that they're not trying to cater to an audience that has a diversity of opinion. They're just giving the conservative answer to this issue. I think regardless of if you're left-leaning media or right-leaning media, we can only benefit from having diversity of opinion, and we aren't getting much pushback from people in this conversation. But let's go ahead and just start listening, picking up on part 2, where they discuss cancel culture and Rachel Lindsay, her interview with Chris Harrison. Let's hear from Jordan Kimball.
The wrong people are making headlines because you're exactly
Correct.
right. There's no acts of racism. And we never got to hear her intent at all.
Right.
And America and the public and the media and Rachel Lindsay, they didn't care to hear her side of the story. They didn't care.
Right.
I mean, that's what cancel culture is. It was a little creativity. Anything can be racist.
Hold on, I kind of want to chime in really quickly on the Rachel Lindsay part of this. Do you think that if Chris had gone on to a different interview, not with Rachel Lindsay, it would have had the same cancel culture effect? Because, I mean, at this point, she's become this woke queen that is just out to get everyone. Sorry, Gary.
Calling Rachel Lindsay a woke queen out to get everyone. So this is not a good faith question. You can't ask a question that calls a person a woke queen out to get everybody and then try to get okay, just go right.
No,
it's okay. It's
Gary.
I mean, so my whole issue started with Rachel Lindsay when she was saying how I'll just say her disrespect towards the other Garrett that was at the time, I guess the fiance of Becca. And I spoke out because I'm like, listen, okay, so let's look at this from just a human perspective. So Becca is one of your best friends who is engaged to this person. Becca is obviously influenced by something that you say and what you think. And so when she outwardly, she didn't have to say that. She could have supported her best friend.
So basically he's saying Rachel Lindsay should have kept her mouth shut. I mean, that's basically what he's saying, is Rachel Lindsay should have kept her mouth shut. Look, we should encourage people to speak out for things they see that are wrong. Garrett, not this Garrett, the one that Becca was dating, had posted very tone-deaf Instagram. He had liked Instagram things, and he got called out for it, and I believe he apologized, and of course there was other issues. But the question that this Garrett is saying is, should Rachel Lindsay have quietly supported her friend, or did she do the right thing by speaking out? And he's saying that she should have quietly supported her friend and not caused trouble. One of the issues that we have in our country is not causing trouble. People being complicit because they don't want to speak up. So just because no one caused trouble before Rachel Lindsay doesn't mean she's not a sort of pioneer within the organization to call out BS as she sees it. Does that make her the woke queen? You tell me. Who are you? I don't know. Does it, guys? Or is it just somebody who says, look, is it the legal mind, the lawyer within Rachel Lindsay that goes, no, I'm not buying this. No, don't get me wrong. I didn't like how she dealt. I can't even remember one of her exes, the guy with the nice salt and pepper hair. Bro, what was it? I don't remember his name. I forget these guys. If you're 3 seasons behind me, I forgot your name. But I didn't like the way she handled certain people in her relationship. But we're critical of everybody of how they handle certain relationships because we watch it and we just kind of spoon-fed what we get, and then we share our sort of uneducated opinions. That's what it means to be an American, right? Just sharing our uneducated opinions. But I don't think it's fair to say that Rachel Lindsay should have kept her mouth shut.
And I think it was a very selfish move in a media seeking move to just bash the guy that you don't even know, who your best friend's engaged to. And I think, again, just her goal is it's just to stir things up. And especially it's not about giving people a chance to speak. It's not about giving people the chance to defend themselves. Not that they even need to. It's just, hey, this person's bad. Y'all should hate on them. And it's just ridiculous.
I don't know if Rachel Lindsay does that so much or if she calls things out and then the mob comes around in defense of that. I don't know. I will say this, because I can't go back and look at all the receipts of who Rachel Lindsay has had conversations with. Well, with Rachel Kirkconnell, the issue is Rachel Kirkconnell hasn't talked yet. But Rachel Lindsay did say that she thought Rachel Kirkconnell had a good apology. And it would be very fascinating to hear them on a podcast together. Rachel Lindsay co-hosts a podcast. She does plenty of talking to people. So I don't think that she's not willing to get people's side of things. I think like it was mentioned, I think, what was her name? Jillian? It was mentioned before that it's hard because the contestants sign these NDAs so they can't always speak up for themselves. So it's easy to run with the story. And with Rachel Kirkconnell, she didn't speak up. Like if Bachelor was like, all right, we need you to speak up right away. Or if she was like, I want to speak up and they didn't let her, I think it was harmful, like a wildfire, for her not to speak up. It took her several months to issue an apology, and then the story became way larger than life. Whereas I think if she issued the apology right away and showed her humility and how she's trying to learn right away, it would have nipped it in the bud way quicker. Because ABC and because they delayed her statement, whatever the facts are, I still believe that that's what happened. We really don't know. But I believe, as everyone has said, that ABC and The Bachelor works really hard to delay statements. I believe they were delaying it till after the final rose for ratings. Because of that, Chris got involved and said, let's give it time. It created a dumpster fire, and they didn't provide grace and empathy to the people that were offended by this. That's part of the problem. Not about saying, oh, you're not offended. You can't decide if somebody else is offended by something. You can't decide if this is the straw that broke the camel's back, or if, it's not up to you. If you're not the offended one, you have to listen and give them room to kind of, process things. And by not doing that, it's just dismissive.
It's crazy that we're at a place in society where a group of folks can assume the worst of the entire world and say that we were born racist. You can't tell me how I was raised. You can't tell me what my views are. You can't tell me because of the color of my skin that I am anti the color of someone else's skin. It's really a sad part of society.
I think this dangerously conflates the idea that there's implicit bias. Implicit bias exists. It doesn't mean you were born wrong or that you were born a bad person, Jordan. We need to take being defensive out of the discussion.
He's standing right now.
I think Rachel Lindsay had a lot to do with it. I think she's been on this push of division with all the things that she stands for. And she absolutely, I think she was waiting for an opportunity to kind of take this out. She got a really good opportunity herself as a bachelorette. And now I think the show is really trying to overcorrect the mistakes with the recent choices they've made.
Yeah, of course they are. And it's like, again, going back to the other Garrett situation. So she sent me a DM and she was like, you know how many people wanted me to come after you? And I chose not to come after you. Like, she's this great person. It's like this has nothing to this has nothing
Rachel
to do
Lindsay
with.
Sent you that?
Yeah. I'm like, this has nothing to do with me and you. This has something to do with supporting your friend and attacking a dude that you don't even know. Like, what? Quit trying to make this about something that it's not. And I think that just shows the true colors of someone like that. Is that I just think it's a self-centered move, and it's again part of the unfortunate reality TV culture of, okay, let's see how many fans I can get. Let's see how many likes I get. This is the popular subject. Okay, well, let's just speak on it just because it's relevant at the time. Maybe they'll make me bigger.
This is very fascinating. I know I overused that term, very fascinating stuff here, but this is fascinating that Garrett is claiming Rachel Lindsay DM'd him sort of with a threat, saying that he's lucky she's not coming after him. I'd love to see. I don't want to comment on that without seeing the DM. I don't know if it came off, if it was given with more grace than that, or if that's what it was. I don't know what Garrett's history is. I don't know anything about that. But again, I still think the net positive for the discussion that Rachel Lindsay has brought onto the show is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I think net positive, it's a good thing. You know, people say, oh, she came in and she, a lot of people say she came in and she sort of ruffled a lot of feathers. And it's like, well, for you, but she's also provided a voice for so many others. So while it might feel like resistance and feathers being ruffled for you, maybe it's just conversations that were so obvious to the world she grew up in, so that when she comes into the Bachelor world, she goes, what are we doing over here? It's like if you work for a company that's like knows how to do things right, knows how to manage things right, and then you work for a dumpster fire, you go, what are we doing? No, you shouldn't be in charge. This person needs to do this and X, Y, and Z. So it's almost like when you see what it's like to go against the grain, you call out the baloney as you see it. And I think that's all Rachel Lindsay has done. Now, obviously, she has made, a living doing that, but that's because her skill set is to argue and counter-argue. She's a lawyer. That's what she does. That's what we need in our country. This conversation would be so much better if Rachel Lindsay was a part of it, because then they could just go back and get to the truth versus he said, she said. This is a problem I have with, there's so many, like, Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders would get a lot of BS for going on Fox News. And I'm like, and I've always been crazy. Like, a lot of Democrats would refuse to go on Fox News, and you don't hear too many conservative voices go on left-leaning media. And it's like, we need to have these conversations. There's a truth that is central to one opinion and another opinion. And it's bananas when we're just kind of like playing to our own crowd here. It's always a dangerous place.
And I think that's the ultimate, that's the ultimate motivation behind it, unfortunately. And there's no reason to do that,
Well,
that's how it seemed.
It's so unfortunate that she thinks, or anyone thinks, this entire country thinks, that we are too unstable as individuals or as a country to have a conversation about anything. And instead of like having a conversation, people would rather not speak, or people would rather bash you and not hear what you have to say, because they think that any conversations might lead to death and destruction or anything. So they just, I'll say what I want to say, you don't get to talk, or you're just too scared to speak up on the other end. And that's really gross, and that's really unhealthy.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah, that's exactly what go ahead.
The canceling is going to change because there's going to be a reform. A lot of people don't want to speak out. I was one of them months ago. I did speak out very briefly on a story set whenever everything was happening last summer, and a lot of people had my back. And Garrett, I was really proud of you. I really, honestly, man, good on you for, coming out vocally when you did. I did not come out as vocally in a post. I came out in a story saying, hey, like, being transparent with color is enough. This new anti-racist movement is not, that's going to equal segregation, which is only going to, do you know what comes out of segregation? Racist acts. That's what comes out of segregation. So if I'm going to sit here and be anti-racist, you can't call me a racist because of the color of my skin. So, and even with Chris, he committed to doing the work, which my grandpa always considered the work raking leaves. This is the first time I'm hearing of the work as like something you might be learning from Taylor Nolan, who is now probably going to be investigated by the state that she's licensed in for therapy and psychology.
That's the truest part of Jordan Kimball is his rip on Taylor Nolan, which is true. She is currently being investigated by the Washington State Board of Health, or whatever it's called. Look, but you see how we took too many leaps right there. It's like, whoa, anti-racist means you're not just not racist, but you tell your friends if you think they're doing something racist. That's what anti-racist is. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to say. Look, the problem is a lot of people might not be racist, but when something happens or something is said or something's a bit like being anti-sexist, if something's said, you are complicit if you don't personally go, hey man, we're not doing that anymore. You know what I mean? So I reject his thoughts on what you see the leap happen, and then the next person will play off of the fear that they have, and it just spirals out of control.
Who was also another person that came after me on Twitter. But this whole thing, this whole thing, Garrett Y came out with the Blue Lives Matter. And I didn't. And then I started to get attacked. And I just said, I'm just going to step right in, join Turning Point. I'm a part of Prager Force now. This is a long, long haul. And the youth that are in these universities, they're more worried about, whatever's happening socially than they are what's happening on their own future. And it's really sad where we're at. I mean,
it's cool that, that you spoke out and that a lot of people are speaking out and saying they're conservative, because look what happens when you apologize. I mean, you got Matt James, the guy who's a bachelor this year, and then Rachel, and they have that whole conversation. And, he's like asking her basically to not necessarily atone for her sins, but like, if you acknowledged all these different things, and it's like she's apologized and bended over backwards for the left and all these people. And what has she gotten out of it? They're no longer together. I mean, everyone thinks that she's kind of a loser at this point. It's like, but people who actually come out and say, oh, I'm a conservative, I really believe this. Like, it seems like you're going to lose a lot and it's really hard. I mean, I know you guys have lost sponsors and things like that.
You should never apologize for something you're not sorry for. But I believe she's done a lot to educate herself, Rachel Kirkconnell. I believe she's trying to get her health back in order, educate herself, and share her platform. She's posting about, issues that involve sexism, issues that involve racism, plenty of different issues. And I think that's a good thing for her to do with her 500,000 followers on her platform. This is where it starts to get kind of dodgy, because a traditional conservative, like when Trump got into office, he just put dynamite on a lot of our issues and divisiveness. And don't get me wrong, Trump became president because of divisiveness that was already there. But it's just like the bar set for what is liberal and conservative is all over the place. A traditional liberal in the United States is still far more conservative than a liberal in France. We are so skewed in a conservative direction already that it's not, there shouldn't be bashing towards people that want traditional values and conservative values. The problem is like, where does the Republican Party stand? They have a big identity crisis. This is coming from me. I consider myself like a free thinker and progressive in so many different ways, but the Democratic Party has their own issues as well. Obviously, they've got people that are in office that are way too old to be in office. We don't have the youth in office. Looking at you, Nancy Pelosi, we don't have the youth in office where we're addressing concerns. The only person that I've seen that has had their finger on the right side of things in every direction has been Bernie Sanders. He is just that. I mean, you go back to any other politician. Even Barack Obama was against gay marriage just several years ago. So you understand, the politicians are a result of their constituents. In our constituents, we have operated for way too long, not being educated on different policies, and the bias that exists within our media system is bananas. So when somebody says like, "Oh, we just got to defend the conservative," it's like, what? But what do you even mean? Like, what's your identity behind that? Are you fiscally conservative? Are you conservative because you don't want money spent on wars that exist? It's almost like we've just flipped this thing on its head. Let's rebuild the infrastructure in our country. Let's take care of each other's healthcare. I think most people, they've done these surveys. When you survey what most people want, something like 80% of the country all wants similar things, yet we're ruled by the fringes, and I don't think that's a good thing. I'm probably going to get hate for it either way, but my point is that the whole system's flawed, and then you've got people that think that everyone's out to get conservatives, and I don't necessarily think that's the case. I will say this: there is a small but very vocal and mighty group of people that do reach out to advertisers, that reach out and probably really try to cut people down with their money making. And I do believe that can come out of a control aspect. Twitter, only a small percentage of people on Twitter actually are posting on Twitter, and Twitter only represents a small portion of the country anyway. So there is a very loud and vocal minority of people that create a lot of waves in the market, and I think that created some problems, but it's also led to a lot of progress on the way.
But when you actually do speak out, you do gain so much more. And so speak on that a little bit for you guys on just kind of the reception, because I think a lot of people who watch my show, especially younger people, are really scared themselves to even speak out because of what might happen to them.
Yeah, I'll start on this one. So I came out pretty early because I was just fed up with it. I was fed up with getting called a racist for believing in a certain candidate last year. And I tell you, man, out of 100 DMs, maybe 98 were like, thank you so much for saying this. I respect you for doing this. I'm terrified of speaking my mind because I work for X company, or because my friends believe in X, or like, oh, hey, well, I'm alone in my friend group. I believe in the same thing, but I'm just so afraid to speak up. And that's when it really hit me. It's like, okay, I'm at the point right now where like, if I don't speak up and, Jillian and Jordan doesn't speak up, who else is going to, especially from let's face it, reality TV in general, social media in general, the Bachelor Nation in general is they're all far left-leaning organizations. And so I think for us to speak out on it, it does show people, hey, like, you shouldn't be scared. You're not a racist just because you believe in something. And that's, that was something that happened to me too, where when I first spoke out about it, I was so unprepared for the response. I questioned myself and I questioned my own beliefs. And I was like, wow, like, am I a bad person because I believe this? But what it helped me with personally was I did more research on what I believe. I became more confident in what I believe. And I came out on the backside way more confident than I came in on my beliefs, and that, yeah, they are okay. And that's what I believe in. And it's okay to speak on it. And I think it shows young people everywhere, just by us three to begin with, that, yeah, you should believe in this and it's okay to believe in this. And so
I think it's okay to have a diversity of opinions and diversity of beliefs in our country. It's very hard to even interject into this conversation because there is a difference between a Trump supporter and somebody who supports the Republican Party. It's been flipped on this isn't Mitt Romney's Republican Party. So if someone says, if you believe in a person that has racist policies, or if you believe in someone that let's what policies of Trump's do you like enjoy so much? It just becomes very divisive. Obviously, it's almost above my pay grade to even comment on this because I'm just some comedian who recaps The Bachelor, folks. You know what I mean? And I just think a lot of people that I've talked to have said, like, look, I like traditional Republican values. I like this, I like that, and Trump was their guy, and so they felt like they had to vote for him. So I think I understand when people will push back on a reality star that has a different political opinion than them. But it does get dangerous because who are we to value who are we to value any reality star's opinion in the first place? Which could bring us all to and I'll tie it in right here. This could bring us to a greater problem, which is, why are we idolizing people in Hollywood and people that are on TV? Jordan Kimball is just a guy from Tampa, Florida. Who cares if he works for PragerU? Really, who cares what his opinion is? Why is this a thing? I don't know, guys. Let me know what you all think. I think this is going to go sideways because look, I check my Instagram and get worried, like, who's going to take what I'm saying out of context all the time. So I do agree that the one thing I'll say that I agree with is that people are afraid to voice their opinion. I think that's true. And I think I've learned that through my channel, is that by even considering different opinions within a conversation, people are quick to denounce you for saying you sympathize with someone or another. So I do agree with that, but I think that they're way too quick to leap and conflate a lot of issues to like cancel culture or this or that. And it needs to be more nuanced. The discussion has to happen like in real time. So it would have been so good if these guys could get together with some people like a Rachel Lindsay and have a conversation that's not just woke, that's not just like slamming each other on Twitter, because that wins you points for your people, but it doesn't get us to the result, which we should all want, which is living in a country that respects each other and it doesn't have such a cultural civil war happening. I think that's what we could use, and I don't think we're in any direction heading back to the middle. I don't see it happening. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. If you like this video, let me know, and I'll post another one. And if anyone wants extra content, I just released this this audio only episode of my podcast where I talk about the post-Bachelor Season 25 updates and play some brand new stand-up comedy. So let me know what you guys think. That's on patreon.com/thesap. Bye, everybody.